Good afternoon. We are going to get started. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We're just going to move right along. Here is our agenda for the day, which you've all seen. We'll start with our call to order. So you can just come off mute and say hello or you're here. Dr. Jimmy Bowser.
Here.
Dr. John Kraft is not here today, but Ms. Heather Janes is sitting in for him.
No, I'm sitting in for Captain McLean.
I'm sorry, I just got thrown off. I'm so sorry. Dr. John
That's
Kraft.
okay.
Ms. Lena De La Cruz.
Here.
Dr. Joseph Glenn. I believe we saw Dr. Joseph Glenn. If you're having, okay, we gotcha. Thank you. Ms. Simone Hendricks.
Yes, I'm here.
Easy. Okay. Shelly Ramos here. Dr. Bonnie Roper.
Here.
Ms. Kathy Smith.
Here.
Ms. Lonnie Webster.
Here.
And Ms. Madison Yandell.
Here.
And I'd like to introduce Madison Yandell. She is replacing Sydney. She is the governor's designee. So thank you, Madison, for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to join.
We did not have anyone sign up for public comment today, so we will move right along. Again, there is our agenda. We are going to start with the operating procedures. Everybody received a copy of those, and there are some items that we cannot change, and there are some items that we can discuss and make changes to. So that's what we're going to review now.
Sherry, if you don't mind. Hi, everyone. This is Shelly. I just want to give you just a little bit of background on operating procedures. So the statute that creates the State Advisory Council also tasks us with establishing rules for the operation of the council. Well, and I say rules, I don't think it actually says, we're not talking about administrative rules. We're referring to them as operating procedures. So we actually Sherry worked very diligently with one of our colleagues in another part of the agency that also oversees an advisory council. And so really, we've taken a lot of ideas from that other advisory council. Some of them, of course, are in statute. And that's really what Sherry was referring to. There are certain procedures that were required. For example, we all have to do the Open Meetings Act training. So certain things we don't have control over as an advisory council, and other things, and Sherry's going to lead you through the conversation, we do. So please, by all means, if you have an opinion other than the recommendation that we've put down in the document, feel free to speak up and we can talk it through and decide as a group.
Thank you for that clarification. I ran right through it. Okay, so you may or may not have these in front of you. So the first couple items, the purpose, council organization, those things are things we're not going to be able to change. If you come on down to 2.2 committees, the council may agree to appoint members to serve on one or more committees to address specific topics as identified by the council. Does anybody have any thoughts about or changes to that item?
So this committees would be just in the event that the council as a whole decided that we wanted to establish a committee for any particular reason, you know, say there was a specific topic that we wanted a subgroup of the council to address. This would permit us to do that. Certainly, if you don't have any changes, you know, maybe we can ask you all to give us a thumbs up either in the reactions or on your camera. If you don't have any changes to recommend here, and we could move on, but it looks like we have some hands raised.
Yeah, if you have your hand raised, just feel free to come off your speaker and hi, Dr. Glenn. Did you have your hand raised? Did you want to say something? Oh. So we cannot hear you on our end. You might want to, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Glenn, you might want to go where it says mute at the bottom on the menu and click that little arrow. You may not have set up your computer audio, which you'll need to do so that we can hear you. Can you hear us? Okay, great.
Was there anyone else who wanted to say?
I don't know if you can see the comments, but Teresa Goodwin is commenting on behalf of Colonel Moore. He cannot hear or see anything. So
Okay.
she is just an observer, so she's only making comments on his behalf.
Okay. Was that her only comment, Ms. James?
She said thumbs up.
Okay.
And he has sound now, apparently.
Okay, good. All right, we'll keep moving and don't hesitate to stop me. So, special meetings of the council. Anyone have anything they want to mention about that? And feel free on anything on this page right here, 3.2, 3.4, 3.6, if there's anything that stood out to you. So we'll be giving agendas ahead of time. You'll have the opportunity to submit agenda items.
Sherry,
Yes.
one thing that Captain McLean had asked if we could possibly get the meeting minutes from the note from the meeting a little sooner than we did this time. It just kind of helps us because I back brief him, but sometimes I miss things. So if we could get minutes a little sooner.
Yes, and that is also a goal of ours as well. So we will.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, it was on the previous.
Okay, yeah, so here's minutes and records.
So Heather, would you like us to put something in this operating procedures under 3.7, or are you just making more of an informal request?
Just more of an informal request. I know that several of the state school liaisons had requested the minutes as well because they could not attend the last meeting. So it's just helpful for all of us if we have those so we can know what's happening.
Great. All right, thank you, Heather.
Okay, so no specific time frame for that. We don't want to.
Sounds like it was just an informal request. So bear with us just a second. We're trying to make sure that we're monitoring the chat. Sherry's driving the PowerPoint and can't see both the chat and the screens of the slides at the same time. So if we're falling a little bit behind on anything you might be putting in the chat, just bear with us.
Jimmy, we good?
Yes, I'm seeing you a question too.
All right, registration procedures for public comment. So currently, people who want to make public comment can do so an hour before the meeting starts. So that is something we could change. We could make it 30 minutes before.
I think the other thing to point out to you in this one is we've said that individuals who want to submit public comments are limited to speak for 3 minutes. So that's another area that if you wanted to change, you could certainly make a recommendation to do that. We selected 3 minutes in looking at other entities that accept public comment. So for example, our State Board of Education, they actually limit testimony to 2 minutes. Our State Board for Educator Certification does 3 minutes. So we wanted to try and be in line with other entities here at TEA that we were aware of.
Yep.
So could you, if you're fine with this particular section in the operating procedures, could you just indicate that by giving us a thumbs up, either like a physical thumbs up or use the reaction tool in Zoom?
I have a question.
Yes,
Yes.
Dr. Roper.
Under registration procedures, and I know that this is maybe an option. On number 2, it says the council shall accept public comments pertaining to topics related only to agenda items. So do we want to continue just to limit it to that, or people have other concerns? Because they may have comments, but it may have nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it may be important to them, and it may be important for us to at least know. I know we don't have to address it, but at least if we know. So the bottom line is, do we want to say agenda and or non-agenda items? I'm just asking, not that we have to do it.
What do others think about Dr. Roper's suggestion?
Maybe if we could add it to the next agenda, we could know that someone wanted to talk about it and then add it to our next agenda.
Well, one suggestion I was going to make, if others agree with Dr. Roper, is we could put an agenda item maybe titled Other Business. And so that way, if there wasn't a specific agenda item that the commenter wanted to speak on, they could say, I'm speaking on other business. Would that satisfy your concern, Dr. Roper?
Well, and then at what point in the meeting would you put that? Would you put it right after, say, public comments? Because I think what we don't want, because I deal with this all the time, is kind of constant interruptions. So I think if we're going to do that, it needs to be near this agenda item for public comments, or just have either agenda or non-agenda. Again, it doesn't have to be. I was just asking.
So the public comment would still happen during the public comment time period. They would just, when they state, because on the form that they complete, they're stating which item they are speaking to. on the agenda. And so if they had something that wasn't on the agenda, they would just say other business, but it would still happen at the beginning of the meeting during that public comment period.
Okay.
Shelley, do you have something you want to say? Okay.
I'm just waiting to see if anybody else has any thoughts on this particular adjustment. So Dr. Roper's suggestion, and I'm not even sure that it's a suggestion, he's asking you all what you think about changing number 2 to say related only to agenda or non-agenda items. Anything you check?
I just thumbs up.
Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and make that adjustment. Not hearing anybody dissenting with it, we'll go ahead and adjust it accordingly.
Agenda and non-agenda. Okay, written comment is the next section. So people may also file written testimony. And so this is addressing that aspect and
Is there a timeline on when they have to get that submitted? Does that have to share it with everyone else?
It's a good thought that we probably should include one. Do you have a suggestion for what time frame?
I don't think since we have to get it to everyone else at least an hour prior to the meeting.
the same as public comment.
Yeah,
So Dr. Bowser suggested putting a time frame when that written comment has to be submitted by a member of the public, and he's suggesting 1 hour prior to the start of the meeting, which is also the requirement for registration. Thoughts on that suggestion? See, Lonnie gave it a thumbs up. Dr. Roper gave it a thumbs up. Heather gave it a thumbs up.
Kathy gave it a thumbs up.
Okay. And the last item is review of operating procedures. So we can review the operating procedures annually, every other year, every 6 months. Any is annually sufficient? I see Ms. Webster say yes, Dr. Roper say yes. Okay. Okay.
All right, I have one other very brief thing that I wanted to bring up, because Sherry and I were talking about this beforehand, and I've just found myself doing it. And this is not an operating procedure, it's really just kind of informal feedback, a request for what you all would prefer. You know, our rule of thumb here at TEA is to typically refer to folks by their title and last name. We are catching ourselves using some combination of first and last names. So we thought it would probably just be a really good idea to check in with you all to see what you feel comfortable with. And sort of as a rule of thumb for all of us when we're talking to each other in these meetings, what sort of protocol do you prefer that we use?
I think, I don't understand what you're asking.
I'm asking whether you prefer that we refer to each other by first names or by title and last names, if you have a preference.
I have no preference.
Kathy says first name is good for me. Everybody else just give it thumbs up.
Either is fine with me.
Me too.
I have no preference. Either one is fine with me.
Teresa says, I'll give the first name. Oh, it's easy. It says give a first name on my call sign, which is easy.
Okay. All right. Then everybody is fine with either option. So feel free to refer to folks in the manner that you feel most comfortable with. And we'll move forward. And please, by all means, if you don't feel comfortable or you prefer a specific way, don't hesitate. You can let us know. You can send Sherry an email and we'll make sure to let folks know.
I can answer no preference.
Okay, so are we ready, Shelley, to go ahead and? Okay, so if everybody approves these operating procedures.
Just a moment. So one of the operating procedures is, and I wonder, Sherry, if you might go back to
Yeah.
the Robert's Rules of Orders
Mhm.
portion. I think it's, is it procedure?
Yep.
So just trying to keep ourselves honest here. So 3.6 at the bottom does say that we will be conducting these meetings informally, but with proper decorum. And the only time that we'll really be sticking to Robert's Rules of Order is for the purpose of approving any action items. So the approval of the operating procedures is an action item. So in instances like this, we'll ask for a motion and a second, and then we'll ask for a formal vote. So if everybody on the call would vote anytime we have an action item. So this is a great first example of when we'll use our Robert's Rules to make a decision on an action item.
You want them to vote by using the thumbs up in the chat?
Well, we need someone first to make a motion. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I move that the operating procedures with the noted changes be approved.
Do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Simone.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then thank you very much. We have officially approved our first set of operating procedures. We appreciate your attention to that.
Okay, so Shelley's gonna go over the MIC3 annual business meeting that she attended.
Yeah, so for those of you who may not be familiar, just as a reminder, the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission is the national organization that represents the military compact. There are commissioners that are represented from all 50 states plus the District of Columbia, and their bylaws require that they conduct an annual business meeting every year. So the 2022 annual business meeting took place in October in Baton Rouge. And this was the first time back for a face-to-face meeting for the annual business meeting since 2019. So we were excited. Those of us who attended were very excited that we were able to be back to face-to-face meetings. The last 2 years had been just virtual meetings. There are a couple of things that I wanted in particular to give you a recap of from the meeting. So the first one on there, you can see, was an action item for the commission. And it dealt with the question of extending the compact to include children of members who are serving in the National Guard and Reserve on orders other than Title 10. So currently, the language of the compact only covers individuals serving on Title 10 orders. And this was a question on whether or not to extend that. About 2 or 3 years ago, the executive committee of MIC3 created a task force to look into this issue. The task force did recommend to the commission as a whole that they extend the applicability of the compact to cover additional National Guard and Reserve orders. But it had been kind of a hotly debated topic at the last two MIC3 annual business meetings. I think just to kind of recap, I don't need to like go into great detail unless you want me to, but to just give you a quick reason why it had been hotly debated for, I think, probably two main reasons. One is there was no data available to support whether or not the extension was in fact necessary. And that was, I think, a point of frustration that several states raised. The task force tried to get data. The different states tried to get data in their own states because they wanted to see like what number of students are we actually talking about that are impacted by this. And there was never any information that was readily available that would indicate that. One of the things that was pointed out to us was that we're not certain that, so the most common orders other than Title 10 or Title 32, which tend to be when an individual is called to active duty by the governor of the state. And the comments that were shared among the commissioners was that we're not sure that those individuals actually take their families with them when they move. So if they're called to duty by the governor, we were trying to find out how often do they actually take their families with them and relocate. And what we were told is there really just isn't, they don't collect this data. Or if they do, they weren't able to parse it out in a way that they could give it to each state. So that was one area of concern related to this suggestion. The other area of concern was that several states were worried about what that might do to the state dues that are owed to MIC3. Every state pays dues based on the number of students that are covered by the compact. And some of the larger states were concerned that this would lead to a drastic increase in dues if these numbers went up. The other states were concerned that since we really don't have data about these individuals, how could we then determine the number that would be covered and therefore any increase in dues? So this was long talked about over multiple years. And at the October annual business meeting, they asked for a vote. In the interim, they held several meetings with what we refer to as tier groups, which are they group states in terms of the population and the number of students that are covered under the compact. So we had an opportunity to ask a lot of questions, and a vote was taken. The motion on the floor was to was an interesting motion. So the motion was not to extend the compact. The motion on the floor was to encourage states to pursue local legislation to extend the compact, or to extend state coverage, not even the compact, but to extend state coverage to individuals serving on other than Title 10 orders. So it was a very interesting motion. I don't think that it was expected by a lot of commissioners. So really the question was one of whether your state wanted to try and pursue state legislation for this reason, or you wanted to pursue an amendment to the compact that all 50 states plus the District of Columbia would eventually have to agree to. I will just tell you how Texas voted, and I represented Texas at the meeting. I voted no on the amendment. And the reason for that was that this now makes it piecemeal. If every state is going to pursue their own state legislation to extend this coverage, it's going to be different in every state in the union, and there's not going to be uniform applicability. And for that was one of my main reasons for voting no, is that it continues to kind of create discrepancies from state to state. The end outcome was that the motion carried. So the commission as a whole their official stance is to encourage each state to pursue state legislation that would make this extension. Therefore, it would be outside the compact. So that was the outcome of that. I'm going to pause because I know that's kind of a complex issue, and this is probably the first time that many of you have heard of it, to see if there are any questions.
So did they share some examples about what kind of scenarios they were talking about for extending beyond Title 10?
I think the most frequently discussed example was the example of a state governor calling up the National Guard and Reserve in their state. They gave the example. I think one example that they talked about frequently was, maybe there's a hurricane in a state and the governor calls up the National Guard and Reserves, and individuals are called from one part of the state to go address the situation in another part of the state. And I do know that several of the commissioners who are former military or themselves are former National Guard or current National Guard and Reserve expressed some sentiment that they're really not sure that in those instances, the service members take their families with them.
Well, I retired from the reserves. I did 35 years. And I will tell you, in most cases, reservists, I can't speak for National Guard, but I would assume it's the same. They do not bring their families with them because it's so disruptive that they usually don't bring their families with them.
I want to say the same as active duty military spouse and supporting different families. It's very, I agree with Dr. Roper. Usually they don't take the family with them because it's a short assignment, and it's better to stay than move the whole thing.
And I could be mistaken, but I believe that the task force reached out to the national offices, and even they didn't collect data because it's inconsistent and it's not that common. I think so that was shared with the commission a couple of years ago. Now, certainly, since there is some language now that would permit states to go ahead and pursue legislation with their own state legislatures, that could be something that this council recommends. We'd have to, talk to the appropriate bodies on whether or not we would have the ability to actually formalize that recommendation. But that is something that if you all were interested in learning more about it, we could put it on a future agenda to talk about in more detail.
They do provide housing if activated person requests.
So let me do this. I will send you out some background information that the commission has pulled together on this topic, keeping in mind that that information was considering an amendment to the compact, but the background information would still be applicable. And just know that if you if you're interested in it, you can always recommend that we talk about it in greater detail at a future meeting. But where MIC 3 officially stands on this matter right now is that it's going to be a matter for each state to take up outside the compact if they wish to do so. Okay, so the second action item is a lot more straightforward. So in all the discussion going on related to the National Guard and Reserves, one of the compact commissioners from another state identified an error in the current compact statute. It is really a very simple error. It refers, actually, interestingly enough, in the statute related to National Guard and Reserves, it uses the word sections and it should say chapters, which completely changes the meaning. And so the MIC 3 National Office, their general counsel, did some research and they've identified that somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 plus states all have the incorrect reference. And so they're pursuing some action with those 40 odd states to correct the error. It's a pretty simple, straightforward correction. They're referring to it as a scrivener's error. That was a new term for me, but Texas is one of the 40 plus states that has the incorrect reference to section rather than chapter. We, through TEA's general counsel, have passed that along to the legislative council. And so we won't know, we don't know just yet if they're going to attempt to correct that error or if it'll require more specific legislation. We'll keep you up to date on what we learn related to that, that particular error correction. The third thing, just as a summary to let you know, this was a topic of discussion. I mentioned earlier that the commission has tier groups. So there are, I think, 4 different tier groups that are created, and they're groups of states who have similar size based on student enrollment that are covered under the compact. So Texas is in, I think it's called tier group 1 because we're the largest tier group. And the topic of conversation at the annual business meeting was about case and inquiry reporting. So there have been several questions over the last 2 years about whether or not states are required to report the cases that they deal with related to the military compact. So there was a lot of conversation about that. My understanding is that the executive committee is going to have some more discussions about what and how to ask states to report on their individual cases and other inquiries, and well, I guess really even whether to require states to do some reporting as they move forward. Currently, just to let you know, what MIC 3 has access to are cases that actually start with the commission itself. What they don't have access to are cases that start at the state level. And so they're going to look into that. And then the last item that I wanted to update you all on is related to some amendments to the MIC 3 rules. The Rules Committee, which is one of the subcommittees in MIC 3, did a thorough review of all of their rules and made recommendations on some amendments. You have a QR code there to the annotated version of the rules, and then the web link as well, if you're interested in looking at them. By and large, the rule amendments were procedural. They were intended to clean up the rules. They added a couple of definitions. They kind of clean up acronyms to make sure that they're consistently using, like, for example, the acronym LEA for Local Education Agency, things like that. But there were two substantive rule changes that I wanted to make sure that you all were aware of. So on this next slide, one of the rule changes was not actually to the rules themselves, but to the introduction. And so you can see that this is an often overlooked group of members of the uniformed services that are covered by the compact, but it's not very well known. So what the Rules Committee recommended is really just trying to clarify the language and make it stand out a little bit more. So what you see here, uniformed members of the National Oceanic and Atmosphere Administration, NOAA, and the U.S. Public Health Services, their children are also eligible under the compact, as are veterans or retirees who for a period of 1 year. So you can see there, they've kind of just clarified that language. And then in addition to that, children of service members who die while on active duty, their children are also covered under the compact for a period of 1 year. This is, like I said, it's often overlooked by people that these individuals' children are eligible. So I think the Rules Committee made a wise decision to really emphasize this language a little bit more in the introduction. In fact, Dr. Bowser and I were talking just before the meeting that we need to make sure that our own TEA documents accurately reflect this as well. And please don't hesitate if you have comments or questions as we go over anything. Don't hesitate, come off mute and ask or put it in the chat. So the second amendment that was more substantive in nature is related to eligibility for extracurricular participation. And I'm in particular pointing this out because I want to make sure that we have a discussion about this. And those of you who are at local school districts are aware of the change. So you'll notice, by the way, I should have said at the beginning on the other slide that the red strike through is the old language, the green underline is the new language. So in particular, the Rules Committee added these 3 paragraphs, B, C, and D. And what B, I think B is probably the most substantive in that it says that schools and local education agencies shall make reasonable efforts to allow eligible military students to participate in any and all extracurricular activities that are offered to the student body. This is a pretty substantive change because previously this language just said that the LEA will facilitate the opportunity to include students that are covered under the compact. This now goes a little further and says the state shall make reasonable effort to ensure that they may participate in the extracurricular activities. And so it is a pretty significant change. And then C is really more referring to making sure that students are provided with relevant information about the extracurricular activities. And D is ensuring that the LEA makes sure that students who are transferring in and are covered under the compact have access to communication about the extracurricular activities. So these are the amendments. These amendments were approved by the commission. I do think that the change is significant enough that we as a state council might want to talk about ensuring that our districts and charter schools in the state of Texas are aware of the change. I'm not sure how many of them actually go out and monitor the NIC3 rules. I suspect that none of them probably do. But I wanted to open up the floor a little bit to see if you all had any questions about the rule change, and 2, any suggestions for how this might best be communicated.
I
It's
think,
hard because, oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, right now, I think probably the best way may be to go through the region service centers, because they have contact with all of the schools in the region. So maybe we can get executive directors maybe to get this information out to schools. That's just my first thought. Go through the region service centers.
Because it involves, every coach, every sponsor, that's a lot of people that need to know. Whether it's athletics or cheerleading or debate or, things where the kids try out for them, and tryouts deadlines might be X date, but for these kids, we want them to have the opportunity.
And Lonnie, any thoughts about how, I mean, you're right, like how might we, in addition to maybe sending out messages through the ESCs, how we might communicate that with the field?
Maybe with the director of counseling at each, because then she can disseminate it to the counselors, but also maybe administrators as well, so they can get it to teachers, and coaches. Because I know we have some coaches that are sticklers about deadlines, and some that are more flexible.
So we do, later on, Dr. Bowser and I will talk about some upcoming presentations that we have to state organizations. We could make sure that we include it in our presentations to any organizations, counselors and administrators. Dr. Bowser, did we have a comment in the chat?
Yes, there's a question from Teresa. She says, how do we get the compact to cover military children that are homeschooled, attend private schools, and preschool? This is provide Easy More.
So that is a national matter. Currently, the compact only covers public school students. That would require a change to the national compact, and all 50 states plus the District of Columbia would have to agree to it. Or I shouldn't say all of them, a majority of them would have to agree to that change and then adopt it in their state statute. All right, well, these are good suggestions. Don't hesitate if you have others on how we message this particular change. You can email us, you can drop it in the chat, and then we'll continue to explore what other avenues we have to let districts and charter schools in the state know of the change. And Dr. Bowser, I think I heard you say perhaps go through UIL. We could certainly send them a message as well. Maybe they might consider sending it out to their email channels.
I mean, they have the most contact with as far as extracurriculars. That's usually, if it's going to be something statewide, that's the body that usually they look for things to come from, is UIL. So getting UIL to understand, this change, and I think should be a meeting there as well. So they're making sure coaches understand that this is not, that they do need to make reasonable efforts. Allow kids to participate.
Okay, so we'll explore that and then hope to report back to you at the April meeting and let you know sort of what, follow up, let you know what we've done, who we've communicated with on this.
There's another comment from Colonel Moore in the chat.
This is Easy More. I just left Alabama, and homeschool children are allowed to participate in sports.
And I can't remember, I know, Easy, I know that we've seen legislation the last couple of legislative sessions to permit that in Texas as well. And I cannot remember if that passed in the last legislative session.
Always a hot
It is a
topic.
very hot topic.
And they have their own leagues. The homeschools have their own leagues. But there's a big push to allow schools like Jesuit and some of the others to participate in, just in the Dallas area. That was a hot topic.
I'm gonna look it up and hope to get back to you later in the meeting on whether or not that's permitted in Texas.
We do not allow it in our school district, just FYI.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Roper.
Okay. So, part of this council is that we choose someone to be the family liaison, to hold that family liaison position. And these are the responsibilities related to their role on the council. So I want to give you some time to look through that.
So just as a little bit of background to you on this, the military compact itself requires that each state council identify a military family education liaison from among its members. So you can see here, hopefully you've had a little bit of an opportunity to see some of the responsibilities that we've identified that this liaison might assist with. Certainly, if you have other suggestions, we can certainly discuss that. I think chiefly the responsibility of the military family education liaison is really, kind of as the title implies, to connect with parents and help them help make sure that they're aware not only of the compact, but more importantly, I think of the resources that are available, connecting them with the right people at the state and the district level to help ease the transition. I won't read each and every one of these responsibilities out to you. You have it there in front of you. So it is the responsibility of this body to identify an individual to serve in this capacity. I wanted to offer up a suggestion, and it is just strictly a suggestion for you all to think about. One of our members, Dr. Jimmy Bowser, serves in this capacity for TEA. In fact, these I think overlap a great deal with his job responsibilities in his role here at TEA. And I thought it might be just a nice efficient thing if we were to name him the military family education liaison, so that we're not duplicating efforts, since it is in fact part of what he does on a day-to-day basis. Dr. Bowser, I don't know if you would add anything else about let people know a little bit more about what you do.
These are things that are sort of under the technical support umbrella of what is in my current job role under the essential functions, but all these things are there. And so we already have a channel set up for families to contact us. We get several emails a day through the military connected students at tea.texas.gov email address. And people also send them in through the general box, and the general box, they forward them through that to that same email address. So we have an email address set up already to do this. We have this set up. Most families know to just use this to contact us if they have anything. And so we usually pick up the phone and call them directly if they have an issue at a school getting enrolled. We call the school, make sure the school's aware of MIC3. And so sometimes that means dialing up a principal or emailing a principal directly, or meeting with someone at central office directly to advise them about MIC3. That's one of our heavy pushes this year, is to make sure we get information out there, because not a lot of folks we talk to are always familiar with MIC3. And so we already have this set up, and we're already doing this right now out of our office. All of these things.
Makes total sense to me. Can I make a motion?
Yes, sir.
Make a motion that Dr. Bowser be the military family education liaison for the state council.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Ms. Dela Cruz. All right, all those in favor of Dr. Bowser serving in the role of Military Family Education Liaison, please raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? All right, well then, thank you very much, Dr. Bowser. We'll add this to your, it's not really necessary in additional duties, but we'll add this to your job description. And thank you, Dr. Ripper, for making that motion. Oh, yes.
So April is Month of the Military Child, and we wanted to just start thinking about that since it's right around the corner. Simone Hendricks has put together a presentation to walk us through what people around Texas are doing. We'd love to hear from you as well when she's through. So Simone, Miss Hendricks, I'm sorry. I will run this for you, and you can come off mute and voice over for us.
All right. Well, first of all, Simone is fine. So thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity. So there is lots and lots of going on in the state of Texas for the Month of the Military Child. And please know that even after I sent this presentation to Dr. Bowser, I still received things from Texas Lowe's that, would have been great to feature because really there is a lot going on. So, and this is just a really short overview and give you a taste of what's happening within our school districts and in our cities. So of course, the color of the Month of the Military Child is purple for all of our services combined. And in the background here, you see one of our entries that one of a fifth grader has sent to us as part of our art contest. Okay, so next slide, please. So our schools welcome military families in really a lot of different ways. As you can see over here, we have a clap-in at Milam Elementary, which means they ask their partners in education unit to come on out and clap for the students as we kick off the Month of the Military Child and just welcome them and help them feel special when they walk into the doors with balloons and things like that. Over here on the other side, military families are welcomed with little gift bags that had breakfast in them, just to make it a little bit special and to kick off the month with great activities. Next slide, please. So this is the art contest that we have here on Fort Bliss. It is a great way for schools to, have their after school clubs, have their student council, have their military groups, participate. It gives our military students the opportunity to share with their maybe non-military kids what it is to be a military kid, to highlight those struggles, but also highlight the great things that, our military kids have experienced. And we invite all of our Fort Bliss schools to participate in that. A panel of soldiers then is asked to pick the 3 top entries, which is always very hard because we have such great students and such great entries. And as you can see over here, the students that make that, cut and nomination, they get like a little gift card, and we have a little ceremony, and they get a Barnes & Noble's gift card. So it's a great opportunity for our military kids to just share their stories. And we usually follow the theme, the official theme for the Month of the Military Child, so that our schools have kind of a guideline as they help the students to participate in that. Next slide, please. So here you see lots and lots of activities. Goodfellow had an activity with as you see, kites, military kids soar. We had the Infinity and Beyond. Lots of characters come out to welcome our military students. Lots of parades, the Mikasa Walk for awareness for military students. Many of these events also not only have, fun for the kids, like down here where we have the Buzz Lightyear character, but they also offer resources for parents. What is needed, what is available in our communities as our military families transition in. So it's you see the fun for the kids, but also know that there are lots of resources that are featured at these events. And over here we have a walk-in. This is also where soldiers come out and walk in the students to the classroom, just to highlight that connection between the military community and the schools. Next slide, please. Lots of activities here. And just to highlight that it's not just a day. In the middle, we have a Purple Up Parade, which are, held in many school districts across Texas. But it is a month of celebration. And I added this here to showcase that. So they do a month of activities. Purple Up for military kids, bring your military toy to school, as you see. So it's not just one day. Activities are done all month long to highlight what our transitioning students bring to the campus, what they, the sacrifices that they, have to endure when they travel from school district to school district. But it also highlights how welcoming our schools are, and how we really are proud of our military students, and we shout out and we walk with them and we appreciate them. Next slide, please. Okay, so here you also have Purple Up events happening all over Texas. And I did also have a slide, I don't know if it didn't show, where we were showcasing that all through Texas, school districts and cities proclaim April month of the military child, with board meetings where military kids are present. Military students are invited to mayor's offices as they sign the proclamation. That happens in many of the districts and cities across Texas. As you see, we love our Purple Up events in honor of military students. We have purple jumping balloons. We are releasing purple balloons. So great stuff happening all over Texas. And next slide, please. Here you see this was at Fort Hood, where the kids started with a flash mob. I thought that was great. There was also a video, if you ever have the chance to look at it. It was great. The kids started dancing for the military kids. A great activity. And over here, we also have horseback riding activities and resource fair also at Fort Hood. Next slide, please. But it is not, by any means, it is not just the school districts that, that come out and show their support for military students. It is whole cities. So here you see downtown San Antonio that lights up purple for military kids through the month of April, which is a really great sight to see. And on the other side, you see the Randolph Air Force Base headquarters that looks so pretty, honoring our military students. Love that picture. I think it shows, how Texas really shines a light on our military kids and families. And last but not least, the theme for this year's month of the military child is honor the past, treasure the present, and shape the future. And as you can see, we are not alone in our child development centers and schools when we sport that purple for our military kids. Here you can see even a local news anchor is wearing purple just to honor our military kids. And please let me state again that these are just a few activities that are highlighted. We could be here for a long time. You know, there is great stuff going on all across Texas. So this is just a little highlight.
Thank you so much.
And we do salute our military kids. Love that picture. You know, our kids, here you see them, they appreciate all that we do, I think. So thank you so much.
Thank you for putting that together.
Thanks, Simon.
Got a lot now.
So we included some approved resources here that MIC3 has, so in case anyone needs that. And then Jimmy was going to mention Purple Star Campus.
Yeah, the application process is getting ready to start for our Purple Star Campus designations. The application will open on April 3rd and close on June 6th. We have a spring Purple Star Campus interest meeting on February 22nd, I believe it is. And then we have the actual training on the applications. We have one on March 30th or 31st, and then another on April 6th. But we're also going to have office hours available, so that if folks want to contact us while they're filling out the applications, I'll make myself available to them as well. So we'll put that information out there when we publish our next Military Connected newsletter.
And we wanted to open it for anybody else who has things that they do that they'd like to share.
I just have a comment. On your highlighted one on your slide here, it says at the April 17th council meeting. Did the date change?
Sorry, it should be the 24th.
Okay, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yep. And we do have at the very last slide has a reminder, and it does have the correct date on it. Thank you for catching that. Yeah, so we were going to ask everybody at the April 24th meeting
Wear purple. Okay.
to wear purple, and we would try to get a group Zoom photo of everyone wearing purple. I'll send reminders out about that, so you don't have to remember right now, but yeah, anything else anyone would like to bring up?
I think at the last meeting, you talked about some updates on the website for the resources, and I didn't know if those had been updated, or because I was going to
Yeah.
print some things off of the website, but I didn't want to print them off if they were wrong.
So actually, we're going to talk about that, Lonnie, in just a second under
Okay.
this next agenda item. We're going to talk a little bit about the webpage.
Oh, okay, great.
Oh, yes, before we get to that, so our next agenda item is we have some staff reports, and then we'd like to give other people an opportunity to report anything out. We are actually working on a logo for the council, and these are, so the TEA Creative Services team created these. These are options that we wanted to understand whether you all liked any, or if you had other thoughts or ideas. But this is kind of our initial pool of logo ideas.
And feel free, this is, as Sherry said, this is the initial attempt. If you'd like to see something entirely different, we can always take that back to them. It is, they are our colleagues here at TEA, and they, they're professionals and would be happy to take any direction that you might have if there's something else that you might want to see as a logo.
So just come off mute if you have something you'd like to say or put a comment in.
I just want to say that I love the dog tag. It looks modern, cool for the kids.
Okay, so we have one vote in favor of either 1A or 1B with the dog tags. What other opinions are there?
I agree. I like the first one with the dog tags as well. I think it looks great.
Thanks, Simone. Feel free also, if you just want to put it in the chat, if you have a logo that you prefer and you just want to put the number of it in the chat, feel free to do that.
Easy says 2 or 3 are great. Kathy says she likes 1A. Madison says she likes 1A. Another one for 1A, Lena. It's 1A.
Okay. All right, so it's sounding a little bit like there's consensus around 1A.
I'd like to know, is there anything about 1A that people do not like or do not prefer? Is the use of dog tags appropriate in this instance?
Go ahead in the chat.
I'm sure somebody will find something wrong with it. But, I mean, it's okay, but you're gonna have someone who's gonna find something wrong with it.
Is there something you have in mind that you're thinking, or no, just in general?
No,
Teresa says yes, dog tag usage is fine.
Okay,
All right, then
Well,
we will take the consensus agreement of the council and we'll move forward with 1A. And so that sort of leads us to an update on the webpage. So we were really just waiting for a decision on the logo before we finish building out that webpage. Sherry, I don't know if there's any other update that you would add to that?
we will more than likely keep it simple up front, but I think as we go, we may want to include pictures and things like that. So we would be reaching out and asking your opinion on other pieces that we would add to the webpage.
So we mentioned that we're really encouraging everybody to wear purple for our next meeting in April. And we're gonna take a Zoom photo. That's that's as close as we can get to a group photo since we're all in different parts of the state. And then our goal is then to put that picture of all the council members on the website once we have it in April. So hoping that everybody can join us. We can do that. We can promise to do that right at the start of the call. So if you need to step away or aren't able to join us for the entire meeting next time, we'll at least get your picture included in the council photo.
All right, Jimmy, Jimmy's going to tell us about some resources.
All right, yeah, these are some resources that we're excited about. The first one I want to talk about is txschools.gov. You navigate to that?
Oh, probably not Jimmy.
txschools.gov is kind of a one-stop shopping for all information regarding all Texas public schools and open enrollment charters. And we have recently, it was being administered by an outside group, but we have now brought it in-house. And so anything we put out there now goes to txschools.gov, including those campuses that earn the Purple Star designation. Campus designation, that information goes out there, but this is one-stop shopping. And what we've done here is this allows any parent or any person really to look up information on any school all on one site. And so just for a quick demo, let's look at, so to search by school district or name. So let's search by Killeen. So Colleen, schools come up. And once you select a school, you put in the different criteria that you like. Then schools that match your criteria will come up, and it gives you all the information about that school, including enrollment, test scores, financial information, everything that would typically be on a taper is included here. And so anyone can go look at this information for any school. They can search by school district, by school, by area. But the two things that we're most excited about is back to the homepage. Is one, there's two different filters that are there that we love. So if you scroll down towards the bottom, so parents can use these to search. Where is,
Parent resources.
yeah, maybe check that. We'll find schools. So there we go. So when they find schools, they can look at lots of different things. They're coming in or from somewhere else they want just information on schools. They can put in the information there on the left. They can put in grade level, they can put in school, they can put in their rating, whether it be A, B, C, or not rated. Those are current campus ratings. They can also look for things like by programming. So if they want a school, they'll want to look for a school that has AP courses or has certain UIL activities. They can search by that as well. If you go down a little bit more, they can search for either by school by type. They can search for a charter school or traditional school, or online virtual school or alternative school. But there's only two designations that can be bestowed upon campuses here in Texas. One of those is Blue Ribbon, the other one is Purple Star. And so a lot of parents know about Purple Star schools. And so if they're moving to an area and they want to go to a school that's a Purple Star school, they simply check Purple Star school. And it gives you a list of all the Purple Star schools, and it shows you where they are throughout the state of Texas. So if they're being moved into an area that nearby, they can look for campuses by the Purple Star school campus designation. So this is a really good way to give parents that information. We try to make it as one click easy as possible. And so within 2-3 clicks, you can identify whichever school you want to do some research on a school for your child if you're moving here to Texas. So this is where everything is going toward now, is moving this txschools.gov. So I love it, appreciate it if you guys would help us advertise that as one of our primary resources for how to get information on schools here in the state of Texas now going forward. The next thing I want to talk about was it's a group called Bloom. Bloom is an organization for military teams by military teams. And it was started a few years ago. I found out about them at our annual business meeting. And there's a link there to the panel discussion they did while they were there at the annual business meeting. It was that's what I'm looking for. It was hosted and facilitated by NFAM, the National Families.
Military family.
Yeah, National Military Family Association, NMFA. Yeah, there we go. So they have kind of folded them, kind of taken them in under their wing. And so they help them get things out. They publish a lot of information. Again, this is an organization for military teams, by military teams. And if you really want to watch that discussion and kind of get a perspective of what it's like to grow up as a mil team, as they call themselves, that's a great discussion. It's a great video. It's about 45 minutes, a little bit longer maybe. But the moderator really does take them through asking questions about their experience as a mil team. And so they give you a very open look at what life is like. But the thing I was most struck by when you watch that video is, we understand that kids, military connected kids move 3 times more than their non-military peers. Research tells us that they're likely to move between 6 and 9 times between K and 12. And so this is a highly mobile group of students that needs all of the support they can get. And Bloom is a great way to offer kids support by other military connected teams. And so it is under the umbrella of the National Military Family Association, which is a great advocacy group that has a great reputation for advocating for service members. And so they are under them. So I trust that they'll have appropriate things in all their resources when they put them out. But you can definitely go to that one, or you just look them up, and they have a website that has information about them. The next thing coming up, before I move on, let me pause there. Any questions about texasschool.gov or Bloom? Feel free to pop them in the chat or just come up and ask. All right, there are no questions. The next thing is a SOAR study. We put this in our Military Connected Students newsletter this past week when it went out. This is a study being done by the Department of Defense to capture the experience of military connected teams in a research-oriented way. A lot of the information we have, some of it's anecdotal, but as part of the Secretary of Defense's priority of quality of life, being priority number one for service members, they also want to understand what that quality of life looks like for military teams. And so this will be the largest formal study being done specifically about the experiences of military teams. It's being done by the Department of Defense. And what they're doing is they're reaching out to service members and they're providing them with, I believe, Amazon cards. They complete up to four, if up to four people in their home complete the study, they get like Amazon cards and some other things, but there's some incentives to complete the study. But it's being run by the Department of Defense, and I can't wait to get the data back from this to see what that looks like, so we can update our resources and our communications that we have here for supporting our ESCs and our LEAs with information about the unique experiences of military connected teams. And the last thing there, again, just want to plug, please sign up for our Military Connected newsletter. I believe that may link directly back to that, but that's where we put out information, including a very exciting announcement we put out, I believe it was yesterday, or day before yesterday, we put an announcement out there that our very own Ms. Shelly Ramos will be conducting the first Compact 101 training from TEA this year. We were hosting that this Thursday at 10 a.m. And we're happy to have Shelly Ramos, who is the director of training for MIC3, for all of MIC3, the National Director of Training, is going to come in and do a Compact 101 training for our Texan partners here, for our LEAs. And so please share that information with your schools. We'd love to have all principals, registrars, counselors. This is great information for those folks at the LEA level, at the campus level, to know this information on MIC3. And we're more than excited to have our National Director of Training for MIC3 doing the actual training itself.
Thank you, Jimmy.
All right, so then for my report, it's really, we just wanted to kind of share with you a little bit. So for those of you who, I'm not sure that we've shared this at the last meeting, so I'll kind of let you know. We tend to take, Jimmy does as well, but Sherry and I get calls and emails from families and from school districts around the state on issues related to the military compact. And Sherry and I both work in the curriculum division here at TEA. And most of our phone calls are specific to enrollment and graduation or the award of credit, because those are topics that are covered by our division as part of the normal day-to-day work that we do at the agency. And so one of the, I don't know that I want to call it a trend, because that almost puts a positive spin on it. But one of the things that we've been noticing recently is an uptick in phone calls and emails, predominantly from parents who are experiencing some difficulties with the local school districts. And what we're starting to identify as perhaps a root problem behind this uptick is that there are local school staff members and administrators who just aren't familiar with the compact itself. And so what we've started on a plan, Sherry and I are planning to continue. We've reached out to our first set of districts, and we'll continue to do this. But we're reaching out through the local directors of guidance to try and offer training in the compact. Really, we identified directors of guidance, in other words, school counselors, because we tend to see that a lot of the calls that we're getting are concerns about particularly enrolling students in the appropriate courses to ensure on-time graduation, and then awarding credit for transfer credit that the student's coming with from the sending state. So we thought that we probably would get, the biggest bang for our buck if we started with school counselors and then went from there in terms of offering training. So what we're going to be doing, we've started by reaching out to directors of guidance in districts out in the El Paso area. Then we'll be reaching out to other parts of the state, such as Killeen, Fort Hood, San Antonio, areas where we know there are the largest concentrations of military students. And then we'll keep on going from there. And then in addition to that, I'll be part of a presentation at the School Counselor Conference next month, where we'll be sharing a basic overview and encouraging them to attend some of the more specific training. So here's kind of a list of some of the things that are coming to our attention, some of the issues. So new staff members that aren't trained in the compact, sometimes they're just not even familiar with it. The first time they hear of it is when a parent tells them about it. There's also been reported to us some challenges related to enrollment. We're at the beginning of this school year, we got quite a few number of calls related to immunization records. So school districts that weren't aware of the provisions in law related to immunization records when a student who's a dependent of a military member transfers in. And then we've heard some of these other issues as well. And then in terms of placement and attendance, this is really one of the things that I was mentioning. Not knowing what to do when a student is transferring into Texas from out of state and they want to make, the parents obviously are very, very focused on making sure that that child graduates on time. But oftentimes there may just be misunderstandings on the part of the counselors and the registrar in terms of what they can award credit for and what they can't. We're also hearing that they're not necessarily enrolling students in the correct courses so that we can ensure on-time graduation. I wanted to pause here for just a minute just to see if there was information from any of you. Are there other issues that you're hearing of or that you face in relation to the work that you do?
That shocks me that somebody would be enrolled as a senior and not be enrolled in the right classes to graduate. So I don't know. I mean, that doesn't happen here. We're going to get them in the classes they need, even if we have to do credit recovery. And we try to find a credit that matches the course that they took. I mean, every state's a little different, teaches things a little differently, but we try to find something that we can award them credit in that they need for graduation when they're coming from other schools. But for example, if they're coming from Hawaii, they might have a history class related to Hawaiian history, modern Hawaiian history, because I was a counselor in Hawaii for a little while. We're gonna give them at least a special topic social studies credit, but if they're a little bit behind, we'll get them in our credit recovery and we get them on track to graduate. So it's shocking that kids would not be able to graduate their senior year.
Yeah, I think and you might be familiar with this, Lonnie, as well as some of others on the call. I think the area that is probably our biggest pain point is there is a graduation requirement that all students in the state of Texas have 2 credits in languages other than English in order to graduate. And that is a particular pain point because you might get a student who transfers in their senior year from a state where a foreign language was not required. And then now they're facing having to make up 2 credits to graduate on time. I can go into details on, the guidance that we give related to that, but that I know is one particular very common call for us.
Yeah. But there is, it says if a student, if completing the first credit is unlikely to be able to complete the second, we can substitute other things like an additional core class or something like that. So there's a safety nets built in the state to be able to.
So actually that's probably not a safety net, because it would require the student to have a credit in the language. And mostly what we hear are students who don't have it, don't have any credit at all in a foreign language. And they're finding out when they get here to Texas that they have to. For seniors who move here at the start of the senior year, it's probably less problematic, because the compact permits reciprocity agreements, so the student can graduate under the requirements from the sending state. It's typically, we hear a lot from students who are coming in as juniors where that provision doesn't apply to them. And then in the state of Texas, we're not permitted to waive graduation requirements. So our job at TEA is to talk to the districts and the counselors about what all their options are and what to explore. I think, unfortunately, what we're hearing is happening is people don't know about those options, and they're telling parents they're telling parents what they think to be true, and it's not helping the student. And so we're just going to try and do some more communication to get the word out. We're here to help. We can give them some ideas and thoughts about what to look into that would not put the student at a disadvantage.
Right.
May I just add that we see many of these issues that you have listed here, the trends school related to MIC3, and I think many of them go back to that the staff is not aware, that it's new staff, or that they do not have the information needed, because when we as the school liaison office then reach out to the district, many of these concerns are resolved, but I feel it is sometimes a lack of knowledge that a new PEIMS clerk or a new counselor might not be aware of all that the MIC3 entails.
And in a new counselor's defense, oh my goodness, the learning curve is huge of all the things that you have to learn. The graduation plan alone and all the different options is just crazy. So, brand new counselors might hear it, but it might not sink in, because there's so much they're having to learn and remember. So,
Sure.
Yes, exactly.
And I think Simone's point is one that's well taken, especially with as much staff turnover as districts and schools have experienced over the last several years. A lot of it just could be new staff not quite up to speed yet. And we want to do what we can to help communicate that. Keep in mind, everyone, as just a reminder, one of the purposes of the State Advisory Council is also to help give us advice and suggestions for how we can better communicate about the compact. So this is, kind of a standing thing that we'll talk about probably at every meeting. What other ideas do you have? Of course, Jimmy does his presentations. Sherry and I are starting to do some more frequently, but that's only a small part of it. Please, don't hesitate to let us know what thoughts you have about what we can do. We also hear from time to time that parents don't know of the compact. So how can everybody on this call, what roles can we play to better communicate about the compact and how it protects our students?
I don't know if it's possible, but I often think that, when you have these trainings before the school year starts, where you onboard new staff, that the MIC3 should be maybe part of that onboarding. And that is just a thought that, I have, because I agree, new staff has to, learn a lot of things. But as we are training these new teachers to go into the classroom, maybe there's room to add that to the professional development in the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, we can certainly encourage districts to do that, Simone.
I'm speaking as a registrar, definitely central registration. And in my personal experience, when I moved here, I didn't know that since my former husband was into retirement, my kids were covered for a year. So when you guys mentioned we lose that opportunity. So definitely, as Simone said, including that training within the district central registration. So us, the registrar, know more about that.
Mhm.
Lena, we're especially lucky to have you because you represent parents, but more importantly, you're kind of like a extra bonus for us because you also could give us the perspective of registrars in the state.
Well, right now that I'm on this side, as a parent, I would love to see if the district has like a banner, because in my registration process, it's just one question. And when we get the records through T-Rex, sometimes you barely can identify that. You might see it on the withdrawal papers, but the coding, I don't know, it's not standard. You have to call. So I'm starting to not label but identify those students coming into the campus with a purple divider on the CUE folders, just for me to be aware that they belong to the community. I don't have that many military students in my area. We're pretty close to Frisco, so we don't have any active duty. Probably we have 3 stations for National Guard and Reserve for recruiting, but nothing bigger than that. And as a registrar, I would love to, I mean, it would help if we have that training, like constant refresh. Because the turnover usually it's huge. I mean, people retire, people move, and not everybody's on the same page within registration.
That's really helpful. Lena, you said something as a parent, you are hoping that a district would have what?
Like a banner, something that say, are you a military family? Are you related? In my registration, it's just one simple question. Are you military?
Sorry.
Yes, no.
Okay, that's helpful. All right, so as Sherry mentioned, we did our staff reports from the 3 of us here, but this is also, we want to make this a standing item where our council members have an opportunity to take a couple of minutes to tell us, maybe it's issues in your area or topics that you want to know more about. Maybe it's announcements or things that you've been doing that you think are related to the compact. So please, we're going to open up the floor to you all.
Anything in the chat?
Yeah, just tell them if you don't mute up for questions here in the chat.
And that's okay if you don't. This same item will be here April 24th. Okay, so we'll keep on moving. to upcoming events. We've kind of been throwing them out there as we've been going, but here's a list. And we will be sending this presentation out, which does have links. So you'll be able to use the links to navigate places, and you'll have all this referenced.
So while you're looking at the list, the upcoming events list, you'll notice something we've talked about, which is some of the training that TEA staff will be doing. One thing that I want to encourage you, if you're aware of a conference that might be coming up that you would encourage TEA to go present at, don't hesitate to let us know. And Jimmy and Sherry and I will do the best that we can to, get included in that. So, for example, Jimmy and I have had conversations about the summer conference for the Texas Association of Secondary School Principals. We're hoping to be accepted to do a presentation there. But if you have other
Yes,
events.
we got accepted to, the link to TEPSA, the Texas Elementary Principal and Supervisor Association was closed. So I reached out to them to see if they'd be interested in getting a few more presentations from TEA, and they said yes. And so I'm submitting for that probably today or tomorrow for TEPSA. That's usually the week before at TASSP.
So just encouraging you, if you know something, even if it's local, that you would encourage us to pursue. We're happy to see what we can do about that.
All right, Teresa in the chat, just like it says, I think we need to look at a state standard to identify military connected students, not just the one line question of are you military affiliated? Something that is state standard across the board, which encompasses not just active duty, but all affiliates.
All right, Teresa, good thought. We'll see what we can do to find out more about how we might go about that.
Just thank you.
And our next meeting will be April 24th from 1 to 3. And we're all going to be wearing purple.
Purple.
And we'll be sure to send you a couple of reminders, because if you're like me, you'll forget to wear purple that day. So you need the reminder to have that on your calendar.
So I'll send a follow-up after this meeting with, like I said, the presentation and minutes, which will get out sooner. Please reach out at any point if you have questions or need anything at all.
And we'll also send you an updated copy of the operating procedure, since we did have a change to that.
All right.
Anything else in the chat?
We're going to check the chat
Nothing
one
else?
final moment.
Nothing else in the chat.
Okay. Thank you all very much for spending your time doing this important work. And we look forward to hearing from you in the meantime, but seeing you April 24th.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.